I'd like to welcome
Georgia
everybody
1201.
to our June webinar where we are pleased to welcome Christina Bird with Wyoming State Parks and Georgia and Dave Rowswell, who were the first duo residents of the Arts in the Parks residency program. We'll go through a few questions and introductions, and then we'll show a video, and then we'll be back after the video to continue. If you guys have questions, all of you viewing the webinar now, please enter them in the Zoom chat and I'll relay them to the panelists for you. Christina is actually the district manager here for the Wyoming State Parks. She has overseen many of the lands that these artists have worked in and lived in. The Artist in Residency program started a few years ago, but it has expanded from one artist to two artists with Georgia and Dave to over 18 artists this year who'll be spread across Wyoming in our state parks. This initiative for the Artist in Residency is a partnership between three state agencies, the Wyoming State Museum, Wyoming State Parks, and the Wyoming Arts Council. Christina, I think we'll start with you and talk a
Okay.
little bit about our wonderful state parks. There's iconic spots that Georgia and Dave visited, including Kirkgowdy, Guernsey, and Glendo. What's the goal of the program in placing artists in these specific environments?
Yeah, we a few years ago we had this idea. It was brought to us by an artist, and it was an idea to offer up our state parks and our historic sites. So we don't want to exclude those guys. Our state parks and our historic sites to give them an opportunity to really kind of dig into their creativity and offer them places in nature that they could tap into that deep well of creativity and produce. And so we've morphed the program in the last couple of years, and really it's just kind of still in its infancy. And so we work really closely with all of our artists to determine what kind of programs they want to do, what kind of public interaction they want to do, because it's kind of twofold. We want the artists to be able to tap into that deep wealth of creativity in natural spaces, but we also want our audiences to see people using parks in different ways. And so it's kind of, it's a really unique merge for us in that they get something out of it, we get something out of that. And then typically in a typical year when we're done, then they also get kind of a small show and an opportunity to sell those pieces, which I think is really cool. You'll have to ask Dave and Georgia how they felt about it as well.
I like what you had to say about the Artist in Residency programs helping people see our public lands and state historic sites as more than opportunities for traditional recreation like hiking, mountain biking, camping, fishing. So this is a great way to see that expansion of
It
the
is.
use.
I think it's really very cool for other people to see the artist working. And I know, it can be challenging being out in the outdoors doing all that creativity. And I hope Georgia and Dave can speak to that as well. We're really excited during the semi-quincentennial year. We had an opportunity to get a grant through the Wyoming 250th Committee to bring over almost 20 artists out to 9 different state parks. And that really to us will offer us an opportunity to really celebrate this wonderful event, but kind of give them an opportunity to take an artistic snapshot, if you will, of what our state parks and historic sites look like in the semi-quincentennial year, which is kind of cool.
That's so great. Georgia and Dave, I'm going to welcome you and I'm going to ask you some questions. So I understand that you spent 10 days on your state parks road trip. And how did the sort of road trip process affect your art, your formatting of your art, what you chose to focus on?
Well, I'd like to start out by saying that in the past, Dave and I have both done the plein air and the park events. And the reason I'm mentioning that is when I got up enough courage to take my medium into the Wyoming weather outside, because I work with textiles, I had to really think about how I was going to do that. And through that experience, I came up with ways to take so I wouldn't have to take my entire storeroom of fabrics. I would cut them into strips and put them in baggies color coded. And I had my little bike set up with a rack and all this sort of stuff. So that helped me to prepare for the 10-day event. And I don't work very fast. So with this 10-day road trip, I knew it was going to be important for me to make some art, but also to take a lot of images to go out and explore, to find subject matter that I was interested in, starting at the parks and then continuing to work on when we got back to our studio. Dave, what would you like to say about that?
Oh, well, I think it was even more difficult for me. At the time, I remember I had kind of just recently been starting to work on a series of bolo ties with interesting aglets at the end of them. That's an RCA amplifier plug. And I thought, maybe what I could do is I could just kind of hunt around in the parks and find interesting stones. And maybe I could borrow the equipment from LCCC or whatever to actually cut cabochons or something. But then it occurred to me probably taking stones out of state parks is not allowed. And I started thinking, well, okay, so another thing I was working at the time was little upcycled sculptural pieces I call CRISPR critters. This one is part crocodile, part poodle. He's a crocapoo. This one over here, he's part otter, part camel. He's a camel otter. I thought, well, maybe I could do that. And then I thought, that's not really in the spirit of going to state parks and relating to the flora and fauna. An idea came to me, a friend of mine, Mike Beeman, an artist here in Cheyenne, a pastel artist, a number of years back had said that he would be interested in exploring pastels on black wet and dry sandpaper. And that kind of stuck with me over the years and thought, this is the opportunity to do that. There's so many interesting rock formations I know out at Kurt Gowdy. I assumed I was going to find them in Guernsey. We had been there before and had spent some time in Guernsey. And I was just kind of looking forward to seeing what the other state parks might offer. So that ended up being a series of drawings and really fun medium to explore. It really reflected my feeling of sculpture in nature, that a lot of the rock formations are just so beautifully sculpted by the wind and the rain here in Cheyenne. And that idea of erosion and the durability of the stone really appealed to me.
So, Dave, I think that's great that you were able to shift your media and try out a new media. I have a little bit of advantage over our webinar viewers today because I've seen some of your work from the State Park Residency. And when I have to say, when you held up that bolo tie with the RCA, those markings around the bolo tie seem very similar to those markings that you're using to depict our native landscapes here in Wyoming.
Absolutely.
Um, You guys didn't really hit on exactly, but as you're road tripping, you guys were actually camping and
Oh,
you
yeah.
were 10 days on the road. So can you talk about a little bit of what that was like? You're not just out there making art, you're having to maintain a campsite.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, over at Kurt Gowdy, we were able to pull our little trailer behind our Tesla up the hill and out to Granite Lake. But after that, we weren't really sure we would make it to the other states on the electric grid here in Wyoming. So we decided we are just going to camp in our Tesla. Tesla camping is a thing. And you can watch all kinds of videos that'll help you out with that. We've been Tesla camping for 3 years now, all across the United States. So it was kind of old hat for us. But yeah, it really, Georgia is the packer in the family. And she'd like to talk about that.
Well, actually, I have something to say about that. When you talk about what the most important thing to pack for the 10-day is. So I'll save that for later. But yes, you're right. When you're going on a road trip, not just camping with your family or yourself, but you're also going to make art. So you really have to think carefully. And we're in Wyoming where you're not going to just run out to an art supply store while you're on the road. So you really have to think carefully about what you need to bring for your studio practice and how you're going to do it at the park. And then, of course, where you're going to sleep. Do you have enough blankets? Because it could turn cold at night. It will turn cold at night in September. And then, of course, food. And when we play our video, you'll see just how important the whole food aspect was.
And
So,
Georgia says, you can't just go to your nearest art supply store. And that's true. We've been to Casper like dozens of times, and we knew we were going to be going through Casper on our way from Glendo to Sinclair, not Sinclair, to Seminole.
Semino?
So we actually had to look up, like, where is the Hobby Lobby in Casper, so that I could pick up some supplies. The
right.
the sandpaper backing that I was using was way more abrasive than I thought it was going to be. And I was down to about three tiny little sticks of charcoal by that time. So we were really appreciative that Casper was able to meet our needs on our way through.
And I'll just say, we really do try to work with our artists depending on how they like to travel in state parks. And so we've been really lucky that we've had artists who really want to get out into nature, but we've also been able to host artists in our dormitories that we sometimes use for staff. We have cabins and yurts. And as part of the package, we are happy to provide that. We're happy to provide that camping space, whether it be just a campsite or a yurt or a cabin or one of our dorms. And I certainly hope that Dave and Georgia will talk a little bit about their adventure going into Seminole State Park.
Yeah, we'd love to hear. I kind of understand that that might have been one of the harder parts of your artistic journey into nature. Why don't you tell us that story?
Well, we loved Seminole. It was, we went from the route that took us through up Casper, Alcova, and then down in. And there were points on that road where I was praying, please do not let us get stuck here, because it was kind of ruddy from rain and stuff. And I thought, are you kidding me? Where are we? So we finally got there and got in our camping spot. I got out of the car and I said, Dave, I don't like the sound coming out of this tire. And sure enough, our tire was going flat. And as Dave said, we were in a Tesla, and I don't know why Elon Musk thought this was a good idea, but Teslas don't have a place for a spare tire. So here we are in the most remote park with no spare tire. But the ranger, Josiah, was so accommodating, friendly, and now our car that we're going to sleep in is kind of on a slant. And he said, well, how about the guest house? And we said, yeah. It's got a shower and a real kitchen. So
We've got another shower story too. So we camp quite a lot out in Kirk County during the year. We are huge supporters, so we always get our year-long pass and our parking pass and stuff for the year. But when we got to Guernsey, it was not really super obvious, like where the showers were or anything along those lines. And we were talking with Cassie, the head ranger out in Guernsey, and she says, "Would you guys like to take a shower?" And we're like, "Yes, please." And that ended up being one of our most memorable times in the park. You're out in nature, and then all of a sudden there's this shower, and you're like, "Oh, this is great."
So you'll see, I just want to mention when the video comes up, you will see kind of our son-in-law Noam coming to the rescue from Cheyenne on a Sunday, brought a tire up, changed it for us, spent the day with us, and then went back.
Happened to have met Josiah, the head ranger in Seminole, the previous summer at his food truck. So Josiah already knew him. So when he came out to the park, he brought, I don't know if it was 2 pints
Hummus.
of hummus and a bunch of pita bread. So we had a big luncheon with Josiah and his family,
Yeah.
and Noam and our grandson, and we all together in the Rangers' spare cottage,
The guest house.
the guest
So,
house.
although it was a tough one, it ended up being the one with the best stories and the most memorable.
That
We
often
do. We
seems to
we
be
do.
the
We do really, we try really hard to set our artists up for success. And so we try, and this year we're trying something a little bit different in making sure that all of our artists connect via phone with the superintendent or the staff member that they're going to engage with at the park. As you can imagine, our parks are pretty big, and sometimes we don't have a lot of staff when our artists come in. So we want to make sure that they are as successful as possible. But I don't think you will find a state park employee across the state of Wyoming who isn't willing to bend over backwards to help and make sure that people who visit us have what they need, and make sure that they're safe. Yeah. So when I heard that story, I was like, well, of course he did. Of course they put you up in the guest house. Of course they did.
I think that's wonderful. Often the most challenging times of our lives do turn out to be the greatest periods of growth, and serendipitous helpers arrive
And
along the
anybody
way
that's
to share our
thinking,
journey. So speaking of sharing, I'd like to go ahead and share the video. It's so
okay.
wonderful. And I'm going to do that now. Afterwards, we'll continue our webinar.
Good morning. Welcome to a section of our art residency I'm going to be following. It's all about the art, but hey, you've got to eat. And this morning I'm going to be making chocolate chip pancakes. You flip your one pancake. And when you flip it, you flip it right down on top of your other pancake. It seals in the chocolate doesn't leak all over the place. And it keeps it from getting scorches. with our make do feather black. Series. It's all about the art, but you gotta eat. And tonight we're making canned pizza. Watch out, huh? Ooh, look at that. Really good. It's all about the art, but you gotta eat. So I'm making some M&M's.
You gotta get your hands here. Let her do it.
So good. Did you get the chocolate on there?
Yeah.
Mm.
Here.
That might be the end.
Shouldn't be.
So I think that we're back online, and I just want to talk about, God, what a beautiful experience you guys had, and to capture it in the photos and videos that you've presented. I love that you looked at your work as sort of the texture of Wyoming. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about that and about specifically Georgia. Maybe we could start with you and your artwork. Maybe you could.
Yes, Wyoming plays a huge part in the direction that my art took. We moved in from Atlanta in 2008, and in the South, I had been working with Southern themes. Really, I'm very influenced by where I live, and also very Southern materials like bamboo, which I knew was not growing in Wyoming. And I was making paper with okra and doing other things with oversized okra pods. So when I knew we were coming here, I thought, I have no idea what I'm going to do, what my Western voice will be. But one day we were driving through a road cut and I saw the stratification in the road cut. And I thought, I love the way that looks, the textures, the variety of colors. And I said, I want to do something with that, but I don't want to paint it. That seems too boring. Thought, I'm going to do that in fabric. I have a big history on textiles through my mother and her side of the family. And then the next thing I thought of was, I'm going to do that in old clothes and household textiles. So the technique of what I ended up coining compressed fabric is a direct result of moving to Wyoming. So, and I've been working that way ever since and feeling like it's my really mature work that blends together my informal training through my mother and then my formal degree in painting and drawing. So thank you, Wyoming.
Thank you, Georgia. I noticed that you go out and do sort of mini plein air sketches or watercolors, maybe acrylic, I'm not sure, but before, and then you come back normally when you're not in the state park building art, you come back to your studio or your art yurt, as you guys had, and translate those sketches into a finished piece of fabric work.
Yes,
And
I do a colored pencil sketch because not that I love colored pencils, but it really mimics more the way I'm going to work than using paint, which is a physical blending of colors. And colored pencils is more of an optical way of blending colors, like I'm going to be doing with the fabric, and it's very important about thinking about the line work in that. So that's why I choose that. And my latest series is called Riding the Range, which is just exactly what we were doing as we were going on this 10-day trip. Dave drives, and I get to sit in the passenger seat and just take pictures out the window of the car. And the beauty of the cell phone is it's so available and immediate, and it'll tell you exactly where you're at, which is important in Wyoming because there aren't a lot of other markers for you to understand where you're at. So that has been my latest series that I've been working on, pairing the Wyoming state map with the image of the place that the map is representing.
And a little side note on that is after we left Seminole, we went down through Sinclair and down to Saratoga to hang out and relax and kind of get some of the grime off of us. And all the way down, end of September, the aspen trees were all golden, and just shimmering in the distance, the dark pines, And as we came down into Saratoga, the sky was just all puffy cloud, big puffy clouds with little blue areas in between, and that the sun would come through and just light up an aspen forest. So Georgia started working on those, then found out there's an art show in Saratoga over 4th of July weekend. So she's been doing Saratoga themed work, based on that series of landscapes that we took coming down
Right.
into town and then back out because we went through the snowies on our way out. Just such a rich, it, it couldn't have been more than 48 hours.
So it was more than the state parks. It was that and much more.
Inspiring.
Yes.
So, Dave, Georgia, it's so great to see how that stratification has sort of carried through your work. I remember some of your earlier work that was on display at the Cheyenne Frontier Days Old West Museum, where you used that sort of same layering, but you were focusing on the hot pools that you saw
Mhm.
in Yellowstone.
Mhm.
Um, Dave, you can
Yes,
see
ma'am.
that concept of texture in your work really strongly. And I'm curious about, moving to a 2D medium away from your jewelry and sculpture, how that went. And I'm also curious about, it seems like you use a lot of color in your sculpture and jewelry. How did that transition to black and white media go? And just talk about your work a little bit for us, please.
Well, my interest in sculpture has had different directions over the years, um, and the idea of forms, how darks and lights, highlights and shadows affect your feeling of the three-dimensional quality of things really hit me as I was working on the more two-dimensional work on the trip. I remember a drawing I called Airy. I'd worked my way down into an area below below the top of the canyon there that um, Glendo above their dam. And I remember sitting there and just looking at this rock and thinking, wow, it has so much textural quality to it. It's almost difficult to see the form because of that. And as I was working on it, I started just blocking in the rock face below that big boulder and getting um, the texture, that flat texture of a rock face, and then looking back at the rock and thinking, well, I could get that same kind of thing, and then looking at the pine tree and just all those textures. I don't think I'm generally all that drawn to textures,
That's
but
mine.
it
That's mine.
definitely was
That's usually me.
it definitely was an inspiration on that trip because then I went back and looked at the ones I had done of the Civilian Conservation Corps buildings in Guernsey and the big monumental rock forms in Kurt Gowdy and started putting that textural quality into it and breaking them down into the planes. It just really that one moment really compelled me through the entire series. Kind of looking forward to not this weekend, but next weekend getting back to Guernsey. The plein air state park plein air program is that weekend. And this time, I'm going to get some really good solid black paper to work with and revisit some of those shapes and forms. And I'm looking forward. It's almost like old friends. I'm really looking forward to getting back to that park to specifically look at particular rocks and buildings that I mean, we just spent a significant time with them. You really get to know them on almost a personal level. So looking forward to that.
Thank you. I think what we could do is take a look kind of at the future of this program and visit a little bit about some advice for the artist. Christina, you've just got your groups of artists heading out, and I'm wondering what's new for 2027. Maybe you're needing to get through 2026 first, but talk about the future of this program.
Well, I think the future is has no boundaries. I think one of the greatest things about this is that every year it's a little bit different. We started with a focus on visual art and maybe, I don't want to say mainstream media, but to a certain extent, the acrylics, the pencils, the pens. Georgia and Dave were the first artists that we had that kind of started to break some of that mold, which has been fantastic. The 250th this year is giving us an opportunity to do performing arts, to do the written word, to do more, more creativity with maybe standard media. And so I'm really looking forward to, in the next few years, being able to, open it up to way, way more artists. We want to keep it in Wyoming. We want this to remain a Wyoming-based artist opportunity, and really work with our artists to make sure that they're getting what they need out of it. And in addition to that, kind of giving back to the community. And so in that regard, I would be remiss in not kind of doing a little plug here, Amy, if you'll let me.
Please.
We have all of these public, we've got, 18 artists going out this summer. And in every single one of their residencies, there has to be a public component. And so this is an opportunity for people to learn, to appreciate, to interact with art in a way they've not normally interacted with art. And so be on the watch for the public component in your area of the Artist-in-Residency program. And we hope people will join us for that.
Thank you, Christina. So one thing that sort of drew me through this conversation is that this is a formal program that brings artists into our native Wyoming landscapes for the sole purpose of creating. But whether you're an artist or not, you can certainly take art supplies up and enjoy our state parks and historic sites and practice your art skills. Bring your
Absolutely.
let them draw with you. So there are lots of ways to enjoy our state parks, and art is certainly one of them.
Absolutely. I love going out into our parks and seeing people utilizing the parks in different ways. And coming across somebody with a sketchbook is it's an awesome experience to me.
So I'd like to thank you, Christina. I'd like to talk to the artists just in brief as we begin to close the webinar here. I have a couple of questions, but the biggest question is your advice for the artist residents who are out there now, and what is the most important item that you packed for your 10-day creative road trip?
Well, as the official packer of the family, my most important item, wait a minute, phone call came in. My most important item started before everything with a comprehensive list. I'm a list maker, and I felt like if I could be really prepared with everything I needed for my own artwork, camping, sleeping, food, that would free me up to have more headspace and free time to do my work instead of wondering why in the world I didn't bring Band-Aids or this or that, warm socks. So that packing list is really important in my mind. And then bring your sense of adventure, because you just don't know exactly what's going to happen. So also bring some flexibility as well.
Two great pieces of advice. I don't see any questions coming in through the chat. Do you guys have any final comments, words of wisdom, advice, celebration that you'd like to share?
Well, we just would like to really thank the state parks, Wyoming Arts Council, the State Museum. Going back to moving here from Atlanta, Atlanta's a big, big city, and we always didn't feel as seen as we do in Wyoming. And when we arrived here, everybody, even though I didn't have great hopes for what I could do in this state, it has really turned out for me and for Dave to be really nurturing to our careers in so many ways. And this is just one of those wonderful pieces that we've been able to experience.
Thank you. Georgia and Dave, why don't you get it? Oh, Dave, I hear you might want to
Well,
say
I was
something.
just going to say, if you go to state parks and you don't see the artists or whatever, they are very big, very, very big parks. One thing that I would strongly recommend is that you keep your eye open for when the openings for the state park, sorry, state museum uh, um, display of the art. If you can, put it in your calendar and really pay attention, it's like it's it's not right after the summer ends, so you have to kind of be patient. And then, like ours was in November, and it was like, yeah, boy, it was having to kind of think back, and it 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 I think that if you're interested, I think that that's just a great way to see the end result and talk with the artists about, what was the process that went into these things. I think most of them would be very happy to share with you, and bringing back that memory, I think was one of the most joyful parts for me. Was all the way into November. It was, oh, we had the best time.
Thank you, Dave. Um, Imparting, you don't have to be an artist to enjoy our state parks, but it certainly can invite a different perspective if you choose to be a creator in nature. I'd just like to thank Dave and Georgia, and I guess I'd like you to give a little plug for your downtown Cheyenne studio and the work you do there, if you would.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, we had purchased the building in August last year, started renovating, and knew we were going to have to stop. So we do have a picture of ourselves with nothing in here, with the yurt set up so that we knew what we were doing. So it was kind of a nice getaway from all the renovations we were doing. And then finally we opened in October and had our grand opening with Dave and myself have our studios here with our studio partner, Denise Hawkins, who's just coming in with her husband lugging something, which is what artists do. But
Wearing her Ghost Ranch residency shirt.
But if
Nice.
you're in Cheyenne, we are at 1609 Central, right downtown in the heart of everything, and we'd love to have you come visit us.
I'll go ahead and plug Art Cheyenne.
Yes.
The July um, Gallery and Art Walk is on July 10th, and our group, the Wyoming Arts Alliance, will be right outside Dave and Georgia's studio. And we just hope you all come in and join us and enjoy the art walk and seeing the artists create. And it goes from 5 to 8, and it's the second Friday of every month, and we hope to see you there.
Year round.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Christina, Dave, Georgia. Thank you, Wyoming State Parks, Wyoming Artists, Wyoming Arts Council, and the Wyoming State Museum. We're delighted with this program and so appreciate having you today.
Thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.